again. Feedback? No? Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Economy, Regeneration, Transport and Infrastructure Committee. Thank you everyone in the public gallery that's come this evening. As you know, we've got an interesting and a very important item on the agenda tonight. There's also a couple of other items on the agenda that we do have, so I will be moving item decisions. So this is 5A, 5B and 5C. I'll be moving them to above 5A to enable our colleagues that have come to present on that to be able to get home. So that shouldn't take very long. We have a number of public questions. If necessary, I'm not sure how many oral questions we have from the gallery. We only have a certain amount of time for public questions, but I will use my discretion as chair to extend that if I feel that's necessary, so everyone is able to ask a question if they so want. And during item 5A, I've invited representatives from East Cowes Town Council and Cowes Town Council to make a statement, and that will be before the committee start to debate. So just to let everyone know what's going to happen this evening. So I hope that everyone's okay with that. So apologies and change in membership. So I believe we have a change in membership. So Councillor Love will be representing Councillor Brodie for the non-aligned. I think that's how we describe that the independence of you, Councillor Love. But I think everybody else is here. So I'd like to go to the minutes now. And these are true records of these minutes. Any changes? All in favour? Anybody want to have a different view? Want to abstain? Any abstentions? Any against? Okay, so just one abstention. Thank you. Sign those now. There they are, sorry. Just excuse you 1 moment while I sign the minutes. I'd like to invite members of the committee for declare any interest they might have in any items on the agenda this evening. No? Oh, yes, Councillor Quirk.
Just in case it comes up in the conversation, my grandson is a computer design engineer at Whiteship.
Thank you very much. Noted. That'd be a non-pecuniary interest, though, Councillor Quirk. Yes, yeah, thank you.
I suppose I am going to speak at some stage, but I just want to say that I've got obviously the floating bridge ticket, so I pay for my travel.
Thank you very much, Councillor Peace-Wilcox. Of course, yeah, if you're not a member of our committee this evening, you're welcome as a member of the council, and of course you'll be allowed and welcomed to, as is allowed under our constitution, to take part in that agenda or any agenda item you would like to. Thank you. Now we've got public question time. So I have a number of public questions. I'm going to go through the written ones first. So let me just get them, file them. I think I left mine upstairs, apologies. So I'm going to go through the questions then that we've got here. So first question is from Michael Slater from the Isle of Wight Ramblers. Is Mr. Slater here? Oh, hello. Would you like to come forward and ask your question?
This. Okay, can you hear me okay? Thank you. So a route has been proposed by Natural England for the Isle of Wight 1, East Cowes to Wootton, King Charles III England Coast Path. Can you please inform us how the Isle of Wight Council will be reviewing this proposal and how they'll be submitting a formal representation to Natural England's consultation?
Thank you very much, Mr. Slater. I do have a response here, and we had discussed this, how to move forward. It's obviously a very, very important item. The committee has been briefed by Natural England on the proposals report relating to Isle of Wight 1 of the King's Charles III England Coastal Path, and determines that due to the varying views of committee members and other council members, that members make individual representations to Natural England before the deadline for comments, which is the 22nd of October 2025. So basically, we felt we were unable to give a cohesive statement response from the whole of the committee, or in fact the whole of the council. So the briefing was held, and members are going to be putting their own representations that reflect their own views. Mr. Slater, do you have a supplementary question?
So it is a very important item, the Coast Path, for the Isle of Wight, and I'm surprised that the council hasn't got a coherent policy about the approach to this, and making sure that Natural England do the best thing for the Isle of Wight in implementing this project.
Thank you very much. My initial response to that is we have been, obviously, as a council, very supportive of this. So it supports our not only all of our objectives as a council, especially our tourism one. You know, it's extremely important. This coastal path. There are issues, obviously, landowning issues that sometimes can sort of go over what we as a council are able to influence so much, even though there is lots of influencing going on in different quarters. So I think that's why it's been difficult to have a cohesive response to this. But what I will say, I'll encourage every single member of the Isle of Wight Council and anyone who's interested at all in the importance of this coastal path to please respond by the 22nd of October. I don't know if we're going to be putting out a press release to encourage people. That may be something we can do. But I would also encourage any members of the press here to really highlight this opportunity to have as many voices as possible. Sometimes it's more voices more influential than one single voice. So that would be my response to you, Mr. Slater. And thank you very much for coming.
Okay, thanks for letting us know.
Okay.
Thanks for letting us know how you're handling it.
Thank you. I have a question from Hugh Jenkins. Is Hugh Jenkins in the gallery? No. Oh yes, is that Hugh coming down? No. Okay, apologies. So this is a question from Hugh Jenkins. Given the long history of shipbuilding and expertise in marine engineering on the Isle of Wight, coupled with those with detailed knowledge of the River Medina, what were the specific details of each of the submissions, the agenda item 5A papers from those learned local companies, engineers and marine engineers? Now, just to reiterate, which I say every time we have this committee meeting, due to the way that our constitution is written, our new constitution, the response comes from the chair. However, I have not written this response. It doesn't necessarily reflect my views, doesn't necessarily reflect views of the committee who I am their sort of lead representative, if you like. Let's put that as a caveat there. But however, there are some very technical issues sometimes that we need answers to. So I am very grateful for the work that officers do in providing these responses. I just want to just be clear on that. I haven't actually written these myself, and there might be some personal views that may differ from what I read out this evening. That's a statement for all of the questions that I'll be reading out this evening. Response. As set out in the original Cabinet report in March 2024, given the level of financial investment involved, any proposals for change would require the Council as a public body to follow a process as set out in government guidance and the respective public procurement acts. The report before the committee is the end of the first phase of the process and advises on the technical, economic and financial case for change, the options appraisal. Public procurement legislation does not allow for a contract this value to be offered directly to one or more suppliers. A phase 2 of the process set out in the original 2024 Cabinet report would have involved the production of an output specification for a new floating bridge for consideration by the market, which would then provide for local marine companies to make expressions of interest at that time. The project to appoint suitably qualified technical advisory support to develop the options appraisal was conducted as part of the open procurement in line with public sector procurement rules. No specific bid submissions for this aspect of work were received from local companies, engineers or marine engineers. The Cowes Harbour Commissioner, Captain John Kidd, was appointed to the project board along with the technical engineering inputs from the current senior floating bridge technical officer. As part of the overall consultation process carried out in July and August 2025, specific letters were sent to over 88 local businesses and key stakeholders, including marine-related organisations and partners, informing them of the consultation process, key dates and timings, and how and where to engage. Outputs from the consultation have been included as part of the appendices to this report. See appendices Appendix 6, Floating Bridge 6, Part 1 Consultation, Quantitative Summary, June to August 2025, and Appendix 8, Floating Bridge 6, Part 2, Consultation, Qualitative Summary, June to August 2025. Thank you. That's the end of that, and that will be sent on to Mr. Jenkins. Second question is from Julie Newell. Is Julie Newell in the gallery? Sorry, I didn't see you there, Councillor Jordan.
Thank you, Chair. I just want, you made a point about it, that answer may not be representative of your own views. I want to make the point that it is not representative of my views either. I believe there are inaccuracies in that answer.
I did that caveat that it's not representative of the whole committee's views. Yeah. Councillor Jarman.
I likewise have information where I must disassociate myself from this answer. I believe, Chair, there's an issue here with the process by which an answer is read out, and I understand your caveat for this, without the committee actually having seen it beforehand and having the chance to review that answer or not. If it's a question to the committee, I know it's normally to you as the chair in this, so it should be your answer which is read out. I would assume after consultation with
I do hear you, Councillor Jarman, completely. However, until we can change our constitution, then this is the situation we're in. It's impractical given the timescales, and sometimes some of the technical detail that's needed. It will be impractical for everyone to input into the answer. That's why I've given that caveat. So I hope I'm really, really clear. It's not my answer. I'm not answering on behalf of the committee. People will have different views, but we are where we are with our constitution. I don't really want to be going on because I want to get through. Got lots of questions here this evening.
I mean, my only question is, well, whose answer is it then? If it's not supported, that's the point.
Well, I said it's just written by officers, so I think I was really clear, and that's why I say that at the beginning of every meeting, because Councillor, you brought this up at our very, very first meeting, and it was quite right. So that's why I now caveat that, so everyone's really clear. It's not my written response; it was my verbal response to our first question, Mr. Slater. Obviously,
thank you for trying.
I didn't know what the supplementary was, did I?
Yeah, but I think the point is, it actually, if it's from officers and it's not from any of us, then it's not actually our response, is it? That's the point.
No, but it's written to the chair. It's not actually written to the committee. It's not. It's written to. It's asking the chair. This is the constitution that we all passed in May 2025. We know there are teething issues. We are working through that. So maybe we can highlight, if anyone's on that working group, highlight this particular item. If that would be really helpful to everybody, I think. So if you'll indulge me, if I can move on, please, because we have a lot of questions to get through.
If I could, Chair. So I think it is up to you as the chair to decide not to read out a response that you do not believe to be correct.
I'm going to choose to deal with the way I'm going to choose to deal with it, Councillor Jarman. And I'm also clear about where I am, I think, but there does need to be a response given to the questioner, because they did exactly the right thing, wrote in as per our constitution. I'm not going to deviate from that. So I hope I can move on now. Thank you. But I hear you all. I hear you all. Okay. So do we? I don't think we have Julie Newell, do we? So I'll read out her question. What amounts to date and in the 3-year medium-term Isle of Wight budget forecast are each of the line items charged or forecast to be charged against the floating bridge settlement amount? The response: as set out in this committee report, the settlement figure is not currently ring-fenced to the floating bridge budget. The only exception to this is the allocation of £350,000 to support the options development work, which was set out in the March 2024 Cabinet report and forms part of the outcomes set out in this report. Other works to undertake repairs and modifications to Floating Bridge 6 have been met from within the Floating Bridge budget. I do believe later on this evening maybe that issue about the settlement figure being ring fence will be discussed later, from what I understand. So thank you. That's and that will be sent to Julie. But the question is from Alan Blackburn. Is Alan in the gallery? No. It has been stated that there is an allocation of £400,000 for the upkeep of the bridge in the next year. What happens if it goes over this allowance? The annual income from the floating bridge is currently £754,000, as set against the operating and maintenance costs of £1.6 million. This means that the current floating bridge service carries a subsidy from the council of around £900,000, which represents the difference between the income and the expenditure. Within the report, the stated sum of £400,000 is the cost of the proposed work related to the officer recommendation to undertake installation of additional new chains, with the intention of removing the ongoing need for further ongoing expenditure towards the push boat of around £90,000 per annum, which is required on specific tidal conditions every month. This figure is an informed estimate, a one-off figure, and for the purposes of the recommendation includes a contingency sum. Should councillors approve the recommendation to undertake this work at the committee, the budget for this additional expenditure would need to be approved by the Policy, Finance and Resources Committee. Any overspend will also have to be approved by the Policy, Finance and Resources Committee. Next question, I have one from Mr. Cameron Palin. Is Mr. Cameron Palin in the gallery? Thank you. Would you like to read out your question?
Thank you, Chair. Over the last 8 years, Floating Bridge 6 has cost the taxpayer over £10 million on average. That is £1 million lost a year. As elected members responsible for the public purse, can you in good conscience allow this floating bridge to continue to cost the taxpayer an estimated £1 million a year in losses and additional costs? That's £30 million over its remaining lifespan.
Thank you very much. I have a written response here, and if you would take it in the spirit that I caveated at the beginning of this section of the meeting, that would be really helpful, Mr. Palin. Question 1. The annual income from the floating bridge from vehicle and passenger fares is currently £754,000, as set against the operating and maintenance costs of around £1.6 million. As per the committee report, this means that the current floating bridge service carries an annual subsidy from the council of around £900,000. The costs incurred are set out in the accompanying Appendix 5 of this report, with the exception of spend of the push vote, which is around £90,000 per annum. The council funded subsidy for this service is in recognition of the continuing economic and social benefits of the floating bridge service to the communities it serves. Any alternative solutions put forward to reduce the annual subsidy would need to include large rises in income and or significant reductions in operational and maintenance costs. As set out in the committee report, operational costs would likely be broadly similar during the overall 30-year timeframe, irrespective of continuing Floating Bridge 6, a modified Floating Bridge 6, or with a new replacement vessel for a service which operates 19 hours per day, 7 days per week. This includes a continued need for suitable numbers of staff to operate the service, ongoing repairs and maintenance, fixed assets and premises costs, etc. As part of ongoing budget setting for the Council, due regard will continue to be taken around ways to reduce operational costs and increase income related to the Floating Bridge 6 in order to reduce the annual subsidy. Maintenance costs are reducing due to the works carried out on the vessel over the last few years. So that is the written response I've received from officers. And I'm sure there'll be other discussions around this during the debate later on. Did you have a supplementary?
Yes, I did. It was on there. Some of those costs won't go down, particularly the staffing, which is far higher than Floating Bridge 5. But given Floating Bridge 6's issues predate the vessel going into the water, given the fact they are warned of by Cowes Harbour Commission's pre-2015, can this committee take the control out of officer hands, take the control back themselves as elected members, and going down the route of a turnkey contract where all power is taken away from officers who have misled this process from when this vessel went in the water?
Thank you for your supplementary. Because you were able to give the supplementary in written form, I've got a written response for you. Historical issues related to Floating Bridge 6 are well documented, and the major changes to this current vessel have taken place as a result. Set out in the March 2024 report, the performance of the vessel and associated costs were subject to a Government Gateway 5 review completed by local partnerships, which was requested by the Solent LEP, the funding providers for Floating Bridge 6. The review looked at the issues being faced by the vessel at that time and made recommended changes to improve reliability and performance. Coupled with this were a number of major changes made to the vessel following its launch in 2017, which includes significant changes to the hydraulic system, the rams and the ramps, the engine, the onboard IT system and the chains. Changes were also made to the processes employed when responding to faults, which have significantly reduced the downtime of the vessel whilst repairs have been made. The recommended operational and management changes from the Gateway 5 review, plus the physical change to the vessel, have led to marked improvements in performance and reliability and reductions in unplanned downtime over the last 2.5 years. The main issues discussed with Cowes Harbour Commission prior to the introduction of Floating Bridge 6 related to the chain depth issues occurring under certain monthly tidal conditions, which were also highlighted as an issue with the previous Floating Bridge 5. As a result of this concern, the chain depth requirements were a component of the specification for Floating Bridge 6. However, despite a number of technical studies carried out since 2016, the deployment of the push boat is the only means of ensuring that the chain depth requirements are met. Extracts from an early report produced for the Council by the consultants 3S indicate that the chain depth issue could still remain unresolved in the event of a new vessel being deployed. I'll just put in my own brackets here, if that is a chain ferry, obviously. Surprisingly, the vessel would deflect laterally by a significant amount, and also the ferry would need to be substantially smaller even than Floating Bridge 5 in order to avoid breaching minimum chain clearance when the ferry is midway. And making the ferry small is not going to solve the problem of the lateral deflection of the ferry and chains. The specific report and the officer recommendations set out in this committee report are based on factual information provided by the respective experts procured for this purpose. The initial phase of this process included councillor oversight and agreeing the approach to the appointment of technical advisors. A part of the process, there have also been formal briefings with local councillors and East Cowes and Cowes councils. All Isle of Wight council briefings were also held in July and more recently in early October. It will be for the committee to advise on the role they wish to play as part of the next phase of work, and whether it's acceptance of the offer recommendation set out in this committee report or any alternative options put forward by the committee. Any process put forward needs to be in line with the council's constitution, and any agreed decisions will need to comply with the requirements of the Procurement Act. Thank you. That's the end of our written questions. Does any member of the public wish to ask a? Well, I'm going to send public questions to allow people that have come that want to ask a question. If that's, is the committee okay with that? And Councillor Wilcox, I know you had a written question that will come up when we get to members' questions. Is that okay? It'll be a slightly different part of the agenda because you're an Isle of Wight councillor. Yes, so we'd like if you could state your name, please, where you're from, and then I'll take a question.
My name is Jock Rafferty and I live in Cowes. I used to drive the boat that pushed the floating bridge, and I have serious concerns regarding the proposal to install bow thrusters. From personal experience, I'm confused why any qualified person would come to a different conclusion. Where is the evidence that bow thrusters will be strong enough to cope with the spring ebb tides?
Thank you very much, Mr. Rafferty. My understanding is that the issue of side thrusts was actually looked at during the work done with the company 3S that did a report for the Isle of Wight Council, and they worked with Southampton University. And I do believe that the side thrusters and actually extra chains were discounted as they would not be it wouldn't affect basically the change they were looking for. So my understanding is the work was done by Southampton University and was discounted. That's my understanding. Mr. Rafferty, is that answered your question? Do you have a supplementary?
No, that's fine. Okay.
Okay, thank you
Fine.
very much. Is there anybody else? Hello, thank you. If you could state your name, please, and where you're from.
Sharon Lake, East Cowes. As a professional project manager, you do not experiment with an idea to see if it will work. Evidence-based analysis should support decision-making. In this case, the experiment suggested is to use an additional £400,000 of taxpayers' money against their will. The 4 Ps of project management are people, product, process and project. The people, our residents, aren't happy. The product appears to still be faulty beyond repair. The process has been a total mess, and the project can't ever appear to meet its required needs. Therefore, it is clear that the project management has failed on Floating Bridge 6. The question being, why on earth would we trust the same people to experiment with fixing it?
Thank you very much, Mrs. Lake. I'll refer you to the response that I've given Mr. Rafferty just now about the chains also being discounted by Southampton University, which I think that was a thorough sort of, a scientific test, as it were. We haven't been given any assurances that in the report, the £400,000 option of having extra chains has been tested in that rigorous way. So I think during the debate, I think that may come out. Some people may discuss that. So I can't really say much more than that at the moment. I hope my intention has been clear there, that we don't have the evidence in front of us that it has been a thoroughly tested model as they were previously with Southampton University. Does that answer your question?
I have a supplementary question.
Yes, please. Thank you.
So this question is to councillors. Do you have 100% confidence in the officers to deliver for our residents, given the endless blunders that they've made and advice they've ignored so far? I don't expect an answer, but just think, do you have 100% confidence in them? Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Lake. And yeah, I think we've all heard you, but I don't think that's probably something that we would respond to now. Thank you. So is there any more public questions? No, thank you. So let's move to the end of public questions now. Thank you for everyone for coming and taking the time out and for writing in and coming this evening. We'll now move on to the next part of the agenda. Just get my papers in order. Give 1 second. So we're now going to move to paper B of the next agenda item 5, the health contribution supplementary planning document update. And do we have anyone who's going to be presenting that? We got someone online. Oh, you're doing it, are you, Mr. Rowland?
Unfortunately, Mr. Bolter's not available at the moment, so I can take the any questions returning to the report. The report, I would say, please take the report as read, and if we've got any questions, we can try and answer them now. If not, we can take them back to Mr. Bolter.
Could I ask you a question? Is Mr. Bolter coming? Is he coming this evening? I mean, I can put him down.
I think if we could postpone this agenda item and see whether Mr. Bolter can make later in the meeting.
It's a good idea. So we're actually going to go to item C. And we have Mrs. Teague here. Did you want to introduce your report and take us and ask what what you're asking to get the recommendation you'd like from us this evening?
Thank you, Chair. In the Constitution agreed in May this year, there was a paragraph in there about learning and development. Over the years of this administration, we have worked hard to talk about learning and development and raise the profile of counsellor learning and development. And as the committee system coming in, it seems the chance to reiterate this and to also enable some discussions at committee about what learning needs you might have, what you would like to see offered, and all of that. So I've put together the report. Each service committee has a list of some essential learning that is the same across the committees. Apologies to those councillors who've heard me now 4 times. But then each committee has a specific set of learning identified for them. And I would hope that there is the opportunity to develop that plan as the life of the committee goes on, and you have suggestions that you might want to see put into that plan. So the recommendation is that you accept that learning and that you undertake it, and that we have a report to come back in the next quarter to have an update on where we are with that.
Very much, Mrs. Teague. Yes, I'm going back to 2009. Was actually the chair of the member development board we had back then. I'm a great fan of constantly learning, especially when it's such a sometimes a strange world that we exist as members of a council, where we have to be everything and knowledgeable on lots of different items, and go from one very complex issue to another in a matter of seconds sometimes. So mental agility, but having that knowledge behind is absolutely critical for us to be able to do our jobs and represent our residents. I mean, for me, I'd like to see some learning, maybe looking at other cases, maybe how other areas do their work as well. So, for instance, maybe looking at the value of culture and heritage, and how that links in with regeneration. That's a very interesting topic, because sometimes we see things in isolation and don't see how it all works together. In fact, yesterday we got invited up to Blackpool to talk to them up there, have a visit, to learn about how they do their visitor economy up there and the issues they're facing as a coastal communities. Of course, we have the very same issues on the island. So that sort of shared learning is very helpful, because in because we're not, obviously it's a non-statutory work, most of what we do here. So it can be, it's not so prescriptive at what we have to learn. So we have to be, more open-minded. For me, it's about placemaking as well. Obviously, there's some stuff around transport. I mean, that might be something we can look at. Maybe we need to know some legislation around transport. I know that Councillor Jordan's very knowledgeable about that. I'm sure he wishes he wasn't sometimes, but his knowledge does really impress me very much. And I think when you do the job all the time, you observe knowledge as you go. But where we have such a broad area here, the economy, regeneration, transport, infrastructure, there's actually a lot we need to know. But basically, it's about placemaking, isn't it, and creating a good economy for our residents and a good built environment, really, and making sure we've got a culture there. So I know that's a bit nebulous in a way, but I hope you get my drift, and where we can look at some things. I mean, Arts Council do some training, and of course, anything through LGA, there's lots of training we can do with LGA, and they do many. You can go underway, do some 2-day events, which mostly I think are funded as well, like by the Arts Council and others. But also there's lots of online free webinars we can do, which comes part of our membership of the LGA. So did you want to come back on that quickly, and I'll bring you in, Councillor Fuller?
Yeah, just to say, anything individual that you do, you can upload into the Learning Hub and add it as your learning, and I would be reporting on that as well. So if there's something that you do as an individual and you want to have that reported, then that absolutely. If what I'm looking for, I suppose, is something that the whole committee want, that then we would put on for the whole committee. So you can email me anytime to ask me about those once you've had a thought about that and got some specifics possibly, or want me to research something.
Oh, lovely. We can maybe have a little separate session where we can have a cup of tea and discuss that all, can't we? So I've got Councillor Fuller, then Councillor Jarman.
Just a quick one, for members that are interested in planning, there are Wednesday workshops that are available to members of the planning committee, and I think they are actually available to all members. So, because we all as members look at planning applications, it's quite a useful committee to come along to. On the Friday the 24th, there is going to be a site visit, the annual site visit. We as members of the planning committee look at sites throughout the year, but it's quite nice to be able to go to a site, and we're going to go to Acorn Farm, I think, to look at some of the things that have happened there. So a lot of the actions that members of this committee put forward can go along to actually look at the sites as well, and I think that's an integral part of training. So again, if there is anything else, one of the things I would like to be trained on, and I've been banging on about this for years, is time management. We get so much things hurled at us by as councillors, and it's just and unless we get another couple of days a week created for us, we just don't get everything that is thrown at us as always done. So that would be great. Time management, please.
Very much, Councillor Fuller. And Councillor Jarman.
I'd agree with Councillor Fuller strongly on this one. So one of the issues I've raised before, which I know is an outstanding issue, and now seems a good time to raise it again, is the issue of the scope of the training. So my belief is that the training should include not only the members of committees, but also the substitutes for the members of those committees, and that the restriction on actually substituting for a regulated committee should be such that one cannot be active as a substitute until one has completed the regulated training for that regulated committee. Sorry, the word regulated comes out several times there. I'm trying to be very precise. So, but I think that's the necessary element here, that we need to make sure that everybody at a committee meeting, particularly the regulated committees, has fulfilled the requirements of the committee, whether they're a committee member or a substitute or not. And that requires substitutes to be included in the training programme.
Thank you very much. That's I know for planning committee, you cannot sit on planning committee at all unless you've had the training. So
there are other regulated committees, I think they're on page.
I just knew there was just one that you had to. But yeah, it's a point well made, Councillor Jarman. Anybody else? Or yes, Councillor Ward.
I belong to a business association in Sandown, and they have just organised AI training. I read in the media that school children are now using AI, and perhaps they can't tell the difference between AI and original wording. I just wondered if it was possible for AI to be included in our curriculum.
Absolutely, if you would all like it, yes.
We can put that on the list that we can all just move forward, one to be considered, I think, maybe, yeah. Yeah, thank you. So any more on this item, or should we move to recommendation? Let's move to recommendation then. So that is printed on the front page. Committee approve the content of the report and begin to undertake the learning and development required of them. Any new learning to be added to the committee requirements should be discussed and agreed by committee members. All those in, I want for a second first. Yep, Councillor Ward. And all those in favour? That's carried. Thank you unanimously. Thank you very much, Mrs. T. Yes, Mr. Rowland.
Yeah, Mr. Brewer is now available to take the item on the health contributions to SPD.
That's
If you could do that.
brilliant.
He's online.
I'll just get to that now. Okay, thank you. So we're going to move back up to item B on agenda item 5, which is updating existing health contributions supplementary planning document. We have the recommendations there on the front page, and we've got Mr. Brewer online who's going to present the paper to us. And are you happy to take any questions from the committee, Mr. Brewer?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Jones-Evans. Yes, absolutely, not a problem at all. Hopefully you can all hear me okay. Apologies for not being there in person.
That's okay, we can hear you fine.
Good. Okay, thank you, Chair. So I'll be brief. So the council adopted the Health Contributions SPD in May 2024, and effectively what the document does is produced in partnership with the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Integrated Care Board, and it's basically a mechanism where the ICB will comment on applications of over 20 dwellings and decide whether there's a need for a contribution towards additional health infrastructure. And I'll be very clear, it's only around infrastructure, so physical buildings rather than GPs. It's not about providing a service, it's the physical infrastructure. So that's been in place for just over a year now. It's been successful, so there's been a number of planning permissions where we've secured the health contributions from schemes on the basis of what the ICBs have said. And effectively, this update is the ICB came to us probably about 3 or 4 months ago saying they'd like to refine the amount that they would effectively ask from a development if it indeed needed to provide a contribution. On the basis they had some kind of updated figures on the costs associated with 3 different aspects of health infrastructure. So refurbing existing premises, extending an existing premises, or providing a new build. So effectively what this revised SPD does is provide individual and different figures for those 3 different elements. So the proposal is to take this revised SPD out to public consultation for a period of 6 weeks, and then subject to the comments that we get back. If there are no objections, then move on to adopt it. If there are objections, we'd come back to the committee and report those objections and then seek your confirmation to adopt the SPD. So hopefully that's relatively swift and clear. Happy to take any questions, and back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brewer. I think that's fairly straightforward. We're just taking this forward to a public consultation. Councillor Fuller.
Thank you. Certainly from my, as I presented the original paper, however long it was, it just seemed like yesterday now. It was made quite clear then that that was a moving document and that there would be changes as and when time sort of like allowed. I'm in full support with this because I think it is essential. We have a lot of people when commenting to planning applications about the need for improved infrastructure within health services across the island. And if it gives us more power power to our elbow to ensure that we get that, then that's only a good thing. I would like to propose supporting that recommendation and look for a seconder.
I'll second that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Children. I've got Councillor Quirk with a comment question.
Totally support the recommendation. But a few weeks ago, I went to a national planning conference that had presentations from the head of the planning inspectorate and from the head of the planning policy unit within central government. And a very clear message that came out from that was that you can't use things like this to undermine the financial viability of projects, because the inspectorate are likely to turn them over if you abuse the system. So I support it, but there has to be financial viability in a development. And if you put too many onuses on people, you can make a very good development become uneconomic. And the message from government was, don't do that.
Very much, Councillor Quirk. And Mr. Brewer, do you want to come back on that quickly? And then I've got Councillor Love, and I can see online I've got Councillor Jarman, and I've got Councillor Spink to come on when we've finished with the committee, if that's okay. So, Mr. Brewer, do you have a response to Councillor Quirk, please?
Yeah, thank you. And it's a really fair point that Councillor Quirk makes. You know, viability is a key part of planning and forms a key part of our decision making, and that's one of the reasons why we go out to consultation first on an issue such as this. we're able to then collect comments from the development sector, from the members of the public, and from other stakeholders, and obviously we'll be able to then assess those comments when they come back in. So one thing I would say is obviously so far we have used the health contributions SPD to secure contributions through legal agreements that the developers have signed up to that. Obviously this would be an increase in some of those costs. That's one of the impacts of the changes to the SPD. We anticipated that to a certain extent in the ongoing IPS work. We have amounts for health contributions kind of in the ongoing viability work in that. So it's certainly something that's on our radar and that we're conscious of.
Thank you. Did anything to add to that, Councillor Quirk? Are you satisfied with that answer from Mr. Brewer? Are you happy with that answer from Mr. Brewer? Yeah, lovely. Okay.
I agree
sorry.
with the principle.
You
I'm
agree?
just saying that don't overrate it, because you will probably not get it past the planning inspectorate.
Yeah, no, that's a point well made. Councillor Love.
Thank you, Chairman. It's just a procedural thing. I'd like to try and have this scheduled to be brought back to us before the beginning of the new term of office. So I'd like to see this in March at the very latest, so that this matter can be finalised before we move into a new council term.
So that's a fair point. Mr. Brewer.
And, yeah. What I'm trying to achieve is that we do this before pre-election embargoes, etc. I just think that if we can do it, then we should seek to try to do it before that time. Then it is another thing which is dealt with.
Let's just get some clarity on that. So my understanding is that as long as there's no adverse comments objecting to the changes, that then we delegate a decision to be made away from committee. But if there are any other so basically any comments that are objecting to the proposed changes, that would have to come back to committee. I'm going to ask Mr. Brewer what the proposed timeline is, please, Mr. Brewer, on this.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and happy to provide detail on that. So should Council recommend that we move forward tonight, then we'll be looking to start that 6-week consultation period at the end of October. So that will then run to the very beginning of December. So depending on the level of comment we receive back, we should be well placed to then bring it back to a meeting in the early part of 2026.
So could we put maybe caveat in there that if it has to come back to committee, it comes back to us on the 22nd of January? But obviously, if there's no objections, then it won't come to committee at all. It'll just be a delegated decision. Would that be achievable, do you think, Mr. Brewer?
Yes, that would be. Yep.
So I'm going to alter that. We should put that in the recommendation, and Councillor Love.
So I'd just like things to be neat and tidy and done in a timely way. That's.
Yeah, I'll put that onto the second, 2 of our recommendation. I'll write that in now. And I had Councillor Jarman, I believe you had a question or comment.
Thank you, Chair. I've got 3 actually, so I'll go through them slowly. The first one is the model for the calculations that we're considering a national model, i.e. applicable to all ICBs, or is the specific instant here only applicable to Hampshire and Isle of Wight ICB? Quite an important issue because the boundaries could be important, and it's good to know whether we're talking about a standardised basis or a local basis. That would be good to know. The second one is we're dealing with a revision here, and how often are we expecting revisions to come forward? I'd hope that the ICB were not doing a sort of running calculation, because it did say evolving approach. Evolving is a word that worries me a little bit. That means as often as they want. And the third part of it is, at what stage in the planning application process is the calculation applicable? Is it at the date of the application, or at the date of the committee, or at the date of award of the conclusion of the planning process and the ultimate determination of the planning agreement? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jarman. Mr. Brewer, did you get those 3 questions? And are you able to respond, please?
Yes, no problem at all. And really good questions, informative ones. So the first question around whether this is a standardised approach. So there isn't a one-size-fits-all approach across all ICBs in the country. However, this approach has been used in other authorities in Hampshire and also down Devon way as well. So we're not alone in using this. It's not been rolled out across the whole country, but we are similar to other authorities who've used this in the South region. Second question was, I think, around how many times that the ITB may be coming back to kind of evolve the document. In some ways, that's kind of within our gift as the council, because obviously the ITB can come to us and say we'd like to make a change, and it's down to us to then consider whether we think that change is appropriate. In this occasion, we did, because it provided a bit more granularity in terms of the sums of money payable across 3 different types of health improvement, rather than the kind of single figure we had in there previously. As far as I'm aware from my conversations with the ICB in working up these changes, we're not expecting anything else to come forward, certainly in the foreseeable future. This is going to be the kind of the change that they had probably thought about a while ago, but didn't necessarily have the information to give to us. And then the third question, in terms of when in the planning application process the comments are made, well, there's a couple of parts to that answer. Firstly, as one of the revisions to the SPD in front of you tonight, the ICB are very willing to engage with developers at the pre-app stage, so that very, very early on, a developer can understand what that level of contribution will be. So they are able to provide comments if a developer approaches them at pre-app. That will generate whether there's a potential need for a contribution or not. Effectively, when the application is then submitted to the local planning authority and it's validated, at that point the ICB will be consulted, and then they will provide a formal consultation response during the termination of that application. That is effectively the time when we get their formal response on the application submitted and what the contribution would be. So hopefully those have answered Councillor Jarman's questions. Thank you.
He's nodding. You can't see him, but he's nodding. So that's very good. Any more questions from the committee? No, I'll move on to Councillor Spink.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question, and that's this. Given the content of the SPD, am I right in now thinking that the ability of the relevant health centre to cope with the extra demand by a development is now a material planning consideration?
Mr. Brewer, did you hear that question from Councillor Spink?
Yes, I did. Absolutely. So the purpose of this SPD, when we adopted it a year or so ago, was to do just that. So the ICB will provide comments to us on applications of over 20 units, and obviously those comments will determine whether a contribution is required based on the capacity of existing health facilities, current patient list sizes, the additional patients generated by that new development, and whether that then effectively creates a surplus and a need for additional capacity. So that's how the SPD is framed. So absolutely, the comments we receive from the ICB on that basis are certainly material consideration when we make a decision. Hopefully that's answered Councillor Spink's question.
Just
now.
Thank you, Chair. Just a supplementary, and just so I have, so for example, the provision of physical buildings, if one talks to many healthcare centres, is not really the difficulty, it's the staffing of those buildings. So if the buildings themselves are a material planning consideration, it now seems to me that it must be a material planning consideration as to whether or not that will solve the problem, the extra buildings, and therefore relevant to whether or not consent is granted. So I just want to be clear that that entire ambit is now a material planning consideration.
Mr. Brewer?
Thank you, Chair. So just to be really clear that this is around bricks and mortar. So the planning system is unable to seek contributions to pay for doctors and nurses. That's through general taxation. That's not something the planning system can get involved in. And there's established case law where some authorities have tried to do that, but have fallen. So this is simply about bricks and mortar. So effectively, it's around the provision of new infrastructure through, i.e. buildings. So that's what we're talking about here.
Chair, may I seek your indulgence to just one more more question, if I may, about that. It's a very brief question, and that is that I don't agree, James, I'm afraid, that it's limited in that way. And could you send me a copy of the authorities that you rely upon, please?
Thank you. I've got Councillor Jarman had one more question, I believe.
I do, but I share what Councillor Spink is getting at here, that where we're building, substantial number of houses, the infrastructure requirement to provide healthcare for the people who will be living them is necessary. So the question I have is this in any way, or the previous version, applicable to retrospectively, i.e. to planning applications that have been determined, but not yet a planning determination issued, for example? Thank you.
Mr. Brewer, are you able to answer that question?
Yeah, thank you. So obviously, as yet, the SPD hasn't been revised because what we're here talking about tonight is to go out to consultation on the proposed revisions. So we don't have a revised SPD at the moment. We have a proposed consultation period on that. If we fast forwarded and the committee did make a decision tonight to move forward, we would undertake that consultation. And if then committee then decided to adopt the revised SPD, then at the point of adoption, then would be applications effectively from that point on, which we would then apply this to. So it wouldn't be retrospective, because obviously we have an SPD in place at the moment. So at the moment, if we get an application in for over 20 dwellings, the ICB would comment on the basis of the SPD we have in place at the moment. Should that SPD be revised and then adopted, then the ICB will make their comments based on that revised SPD once it's in place. Hopefully that's clear.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Jarman's not nodding again. So members, I think I've got to see any more hands up. So I just could read out the addition I've made to the recommendations. There'll be a number 2 of the 4 elements of the recommendation. I'll read it out, and the amendment is on the second part. The publication of revised health contribution supplementary planning document Appendix 1 for public consultation. The committee approve. Should there be comments received during the public consultation objecting to the proposed changes, committee agreed to receive further report on the comments that any changes proposed by officers to the SPD before considering the adoption of the SPD at the meeting of the committee on the 22nd of January 2026. Should there be no comments received during the public consultation objecting to the proposed changes, committee delegate authority to adopt the SPD, strategic manager for planning and infrastructure delivery. And 4, delegate authority to the strategic manager for planning and infrastructure delivery to make final editorial and or presentational changes to the draft SPD. Any change will not alter the meaning of the SPD, and editorial change will be grammatical, typographical and consequential in nature. Is everyone happy with that recommendation? All those in favour? That's everybody. Thank you. Right, we're going to go back up to the top of the agenda now, and which is A, the Medina Crossing Strategy outline business case update, pages 11 to 184 on your papers. So this is a report from Mr. Colin Rowland, our director, and you will be introducing the paper for you. We won't be going through all the papers. Everyone will be pleased to hear. There's quite a lot of them there, but an overview will be really helpful. Thank you, Mr. Rowland.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to bring out the main points of the report itself, and I'll bring in Mrs. Love as well, who is the service director for this service, and we'll talk about some of the other issues that we're bringing forward. The main points in here is that Cabinet made a decision on the 14th of March 2024 to resolve to replace the current floating bridge. Using the previous work to inform that decision, which included a report from Consultants 3S, but also included reports from other experts that had provided information on a previous period, but also the reports that we were going to commission taking forward this process. In making the decision, it was recognised the need to follow due process and options review. Any process that involves significant expenditure by the council and in the sort of volume, the quantum that we're talking about of millions of pounds needs to be followed through with a process that is set down in the Treasury Green Book, which is what we followed in part 1 of this process. The decision was not a commitment to additional funding at this stage, which is March 24. So the officer decision in the report is based on expert findings, technical, economic and financial options appraisal as per Treasury Green Book guidance. It's informed by outcomes from the expert technical reports of economic and financial. It takes due consideration of the current service as a base case. Floating Bridge 6 has been operating around 95% reliability for the past 2.5 years, 326 days a year. Environmental and operational constraints mean that it may not be possible to deliver marked improvements to overall performance with the new vessel, i.e. frequency of crossings, the number of vehicles carried on each crossing, etc. There are council funding limitations for new vessel or major modifications, and these need to be balanced against the continued expected operational life cycle of the current floating bridge, which is around about 30 years. Unless the level of income rises significantly when set against lower service costs, there is always going to be a requirement for a subsidy from the council. So in terms of the work that was carried out since March 24, we assembled a team of professional experts through a procurement process, which was overseen through a formal project board, which was signed off by councillors. We went through the options appraisal from a long list to a short list. So in terms of that process, it involves looking at a long list, and some of those long list options included bridges, swing bridges, tunnels, all sorts of long listed options that were needed to be looked at, but then obviously discounted mainly due to price considerations and practicality. What came down that's come into this report are two main options when considered against the base case. Now, the first option is the replacement of the floating bridge with a new vessel, Floating Bridge 7. And the second option was additional of flush thrusters to the existing vessel, adding additional control chains and tidal flow reduction, a method of tidal flow reduction. We undertook a consultation process in summer 2025. Once we determined what those shortlisted options were, it's a 6-week consultation, which included drop-in events, videos, surveys, and leaflets. Of the survey, 932 people responded to the survey. 597 people responded favourably for a new vessel versus 289 who wanted to modify existing. So the majority of people who took part in the consultation and responded to the consultation indicated a wish to replace the vessel. I'll now hand it over to Mrs. Love, who will just talk about some of the other main points that are coming out of the report.
Thank you. So as part of the process, we compared 3 options: the do minimum, to obtain a new vessel or to modify the existing vessel. The capital cost estimates were those for do minimum. There is no capital cost attached to that. A new vessel, the estimated capital cost taking into account risk and contingency is 9.7 million. And to modify the existing vessel will range from 0.4 million to 2.8 million. So the increase versus the do minimum is 69% for a new vessel and 23% for the modify the existing vessel. Taking into account the procurement process that we would need to go through, obviously the do minimum option, it stays as it is, therefore the timeline is immediate. A new vessel would take up to 40+ months, and to modify the existing could take between 10 to 35 months. As Mr. Rowland said, the public support within the consultation that we carried out was towards obtaining, putting in place a new vessel. So that had high public support, and then followed by modifying the existing report. And there was low public support for doing minimum, so not doing anything to the current floating road bridge. As we've discussed, the reliability of the current floating road bridge has increased over the last 2.5 years. So looking at the options compared, the ongoing costs over 30 years, they remain broadly the same. So the operating cost for the do minimum is 66.2 million. A new vessel, that includes the pushboat costs. New vessel is 64.2 million and a modifier is 65.8 million. This is assuming that the capital investment to obtain a new floating road bridge is funded from an alternative to borrowing. The operating income assumes that ticket prices will rise annually by inflation, and that would leave a net operating subsidy that the council would need to fund of 26.9 million over 30 years for the do minimum, 25.1 million over 30 years for the new vessel, and 26.9 million for the modified vessel. So all options will require a relatively similar annual subsidy, even taking into account ticket prices rising annually by inflation. As you'll see from at the front of the report, the Office of Recommendations for this committee report, based on modification option to existing, therefore, the recommendation to the committee is to note that option 1, new vessel, does not represent value for money relative to the other options, is not affordable, and would not satisfy the legislative requirements to enable borrowing to be taken for the capital costs of purchase for a new vessel. Agree to recommend to Policy, Finance and Resources Committee to allocate up to a maximum of £400,000 to undertake further limited modifications to the current Floating Road Bridge 6 for additional chains and funded from the Floating Bridge Settlement Agreement. Subject to approval of funding by the Policy, Finance and Resources Committee, give approval to proceed to procurement for necessary works to undertake additional chain modifications only, notes and acknowledges the views expressed from the public engagement alongside the best case findings of the economic and financial assessment outputs. The options available to the committee are to approve those recommendations as set out in full, reject those recommendations as set out in part or in full, or to put forward new recommendations. As part of the decision process, the committee will need to be mindful of the project funding gap and requirement for sign-off at the Policy, Finance and Resource Committee. Neither the economic or financial cases have the option for a new vessel as the favoured option. The environmental site characteristics and constraints, meaning any subsequent procurement process for a new vessel, determine that it's not possible to design, deliver a new vessel which operates in any materially different manner or provides for marked performance improvements when compared to the current Floating Road Bridge 6. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Throne and Mrs. Love there. So I'm going to invite now, as I explained at the beginning of the meeting, I'm going to invite our guests from East Cowes and Cowes Town Council. So if you'd like to introduce yourselves and read out what you've prepared for us. Appreciate you coming.
I'm Tracy Reardon, councillor and the Mayor of East Cowes. I'd like to say good evening to the Chair and members of the committee. We speak today as mayors on behalf of East Cowes Town Council and Cowes Town Council and the residents that we represent to express our serious concern regarding the officer-led recommendation that seeks to overturn the democratically agreed decision to replace the floating bridge. This is a matter that falls squarely within the authority of elected councillors. It is not appropriate for officers to override a decision that has been properly debated, voted upon and supported both by this council and the wider community. Councillors are elected to make decisions on behalf of the public. Officers are appointed to advise and implement, not to overrule. Both of our councils have consistently raised concerns about the floating bridge since its inception. Its operational failures and financial inefficiencies are well documented. The bridge continues to impose an unacceptable burden on public finances, with losses approaching £1 million annually. This is not sustainable and is not justifiable. Moreover, funds obtained through legal processes specifically intended to support the replacement of the floating bridge were, to our understanding, set aside for that purpose. We now ask, where are those funds? What has become of them? The public has a right to know. Transparency in financial matters is not optional. It is a fundamental obligation of public service. The absence of clarity on this issue undermines confidence in the process and raises serious questions about accountability.
Councillor Stuart Ellis, Cowes Town Council Mayor. The Isle of Wight Council has already voted in favour of replacing the floating bridge. That decision was further reinforced by the results of a public consultation, which were clear and unequivocal. The community wants a new bridge. It is therefore deeply troubling that our recommendation appears to disregard the democratic will of councillors and expressed wishes of the public. This situation bears an uncomfortable resemblance to the events of 2017, when decisions were made without sufficient regard for public opinion or local support. We must not repeat these mistakes. To do so would be to erode the public trust that would also represent a serious misuse of public funds. Let me be clear, this must remain a councillor-led decision. We are elected to represent our communities and accountable to them. Officers are not. I therefore urge all members of this committee to reject the recommendation before you and to reaffirm your commitment to replacing the floating bridge. A decision made in good faith, supported by evidence and backed by the people of both Cowes and East Cowes. The residents of our towns deserve a reliable, functional crossing. They deserve transparency in how decisions are made and how public funds are used. Above all, they deserve to have their voices heard and respected. I ask you to honour that responsibility and to uphold the trust placed in you by the public. Our communities deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you both for coming and sharing your views on behalf of your communities, which of course are at the heart of this this very issue. I'm going to open it up now to the committee. I'm sure there's lots of things that will be discussed, and presumably officers will be willing and ready to answer any questions if possible and give clarification. I know it's a very. Did you want? Oh, Councillor.
Can I suggest that Councillor Wilcox goes?
Did you want to make a statement, Councillor? Yeah, that's helpful. We'll bring you forward, no problem. I just want to say, I know it's a very emotive subject, but we're all here to get, results done, get decisions made. So I know we'll do that in a respectful way and listen to each other. And remember, would be to debate the rules of debate that we have to abide by. Thank you, Councillor P.C. Wilcox.
Well, everyone knows I rarely speak at council meetings, but such is my anger and frustration over the recommendation not to replace FB6, I'm here tonight. Just look at the reports, the stats that I've read over the past 8 years. This is 8 years of chaos, time and money wasting. In all of those years, all I have ever wanted to do was resolve the situation that we ended up with FB6. One of the Alliance priorities when we came into power in 21 was to resolve the legal issue that had been running around and allowed to happen for nearly 4 years. Yeah, that's 4 years. As leader, along with Councillor Jordan, the cabinet member, we had resolved the legal dispute and won, yes, won the compensation money in under 18 months. This is why I'm angry. We paid a heavy price financially, emotionally, and mentally to put right the worst of the issues with FB6. The noise of the chains, the slipways, the issues with the scraping of the cars, the prows, the electronics, the cameras. I mean, it's etc., etc., etc. went on. FB6 should be called Trigger's Broom with the amount of rebuild that has now taken place. Despite all of that, it still cannot do frequent crossings. The floating bridge is not good enough and never will be. It carries many fewer cars and pedestrians than Floating Bridge 5 because the waiting times are too long and people do not use it that much anymore. This has obviously hurt our local businesses and our community as a whole. With more cars on the road because people don't use it, that traffic costs the whole island money because time is money. Being stuck in tailbacks because Coppin Bridge is full with extra cars is just not a loss to the economy, but a loss of money directly from people and businesses' pockets. the builders that are an hour late to get to their work sites, the patients that are late to hospital appointments, people that have not been able to get to funerals because they've been in delays. Delays on the buses ends up meaning people that actually spend less money in our island-owned shops and cafes. Frequency of the floating bridge is what matters, and this one is awful. I've recently been stuck in a queue to get on the floating bridge. I waited 48 minutes. I then did a 20-point turn in the middle of the road because I was so frustrated that we hadn't moved one car in front and ended up driving all the way around. Not funny when you've got a sick baby in the back of the car. My friend doesn't even bother with the floating bridge and uses her concessionary bus pass to go around, costing the council even more money. Every car that doesn't want to wait for a slow bridge causes more traffic in Newport. We're now building more houses, just heard about that, on the island, which will gridlock our limited roads with cars. We need to plan now for more traffic, so we need better, frequent floating bridge and small waiting times. You, me, the taxpayer, everyone here, 36 people online, are all paying an extra 950,000 than it should cost per year to keep the bridge crawling backwards and forwards. Yeah, that's almost £1 million a year. Add that, this bridge is supposed to last another 32 years. That's 30 million plus inflation just to keep the service going for a bridge that cost 3.2. Where is that money coming from? What budget and at what cost to the residents? We are certain the prices quoted in the report of 9.7 million, actually we know, they were guessed at, I asked. We know the absolute maximum would be 6 million to replace with a frequent, reliable service. This would save the taxpayer eventually £24 million. You know what? I'm pretty sure I won't be here in 32 years. I hope not. So you don't need to take any notice of me. But on Tuesday,
Apologies, Councillor P.C. Wilcox. Sorry, I've just been given some advice, but you carry on, please, and we'll talk.
you know what? I'll say it again. I'm pretty sure I won't be here in 32 years. In fact, I don't particularly want to be. So you don't need to take any notice of me. But on Tuesday, I met with a superb group of students at Cowes Enterprise College. The entire table, with absolutely no prompting from me at all voted that they wanted the FB6 replaced. They're our future. Please come up with an alternative recommendation and support our kids, their future, their needs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor P.C. Wilcox. I'm just going to take some advice because the way I have planned to run the meeting, I've been told that I can't run the meeting that way. So I need you to double check on that's all news to me. So because I was intending for us all to have a debate, ask questions, comment, and then if there was going to be any alternative recommendation what's printed, then we could formulate that. However, I've just been told that I have to formulate any alternative now. I don't quite understand.
Sorry, Chairman, and sorry if I've disturbed your flow, Laura. It wasn't about your speech. The normal rules of debate, Chairman, require the motion to be put before you start the debate. And I'll just remind you that the MO has raised the issue because that is the normal rules of debate.
This is not a motion, it's a recommendation on a report. It's not a motion to full council.
Sorry, any motion. And we're not talking necessarily about the recommendation in the report. It's any motion that's put. So it might be a motion as you put it. If you had an alternative wording to what's in the recommendation, normally you'd expect a motion to be put before people then debate it.
But we're debating the report that's before us, so aren't we? We haven't put anything alternative before. Yeah, we're still debating what's before us. So I thought surely if there's alternative views that come out of the debate, at that point, then we would put forward any alternative recommendations. We don't know there are alternative recommendations just yet, do we? We think there may be, but we haven't had that decision. So, you know, I mean, if we want to, I mean, you know, okay, right. That's my view of it. I'll bring Councillor Jarman quickly. Anyone else wants to speak? But you know, if we need to do that, then I will take a recess to go down that route. But I believe that I'm correct. But Councillor Jarman.
Chair, may I take you up on that offer that we have a recess to discuss this, and maybe 10 or 10 minutes at least. And I'm sure that if we do need a motion, that one will be available at the end of that 10 minutes, should you determine that it needs to be put.
Yeah, I'm still confused because we have something in front of us and we haven't yet, you know, that's on the table. Unless you're telling me that someone needs to propose that.
Sorry,
So
just for clarity, Chairman, this isn't a motion on notice before this committee. You have a report before the committee. There is no motion. The words within the report are just an officer recommendation. They are not a motion. Until something is put to the committee, technically, there shouldn't be a debate. Now, what's put before committee is entirely for members.
Okay, my calling it a debate is causing an issue. So if we just say I need questions or comments from the committee, we're in safe ground there. Yeah, we are. But I wanted to have us to talk, ask questions first before we come to a conclusion. Because how can we come to a conclusion when we've not heard what people got to say?
I'm happy to make a motion then, Chair, if it's required, as we're advised legally it is, I'm happy to do so.
Well, no, because I think that needs some discussion. I can't stop you, obviously, but well, because go on, carry on then, Ms. Councillor John.
I hear lots of uhs going on. I just want to make sure I'm not interrupting other people that you'd like to bring in. But so what I would do is I will make a motion, and I'll read it because I think we've all got it by email, and I think it's also been printed. I understand.
Well, actually, I would really prefer if we took a break now because I've received that and there's some typos in there and a couple of things that need altering, I believe. So rather than us having to go back again to alter that, if we could take the break now, we'll come back at 18:35. So we're gonna have a break, everybody, stretch your legs, get a glass of water, and we'll get together and put this alternative recommendation forward as we've been advised to do it now. I'll wait till you come back, Simon, before we restart the meeting. We have to go online. Right, I think, are we okay to start the meeting when you're ready, Simon? Just let me know. Right, thank you for everyone for your patience. As you know, we had some advice from the monitoring officer of how to run this section of our meeting this evening. So I am going to put forward a different recommendation. That's in the paper. I'm going to read it out. I'll look for a seconder, and then we can debate it. But of course, members, if they really want to, can amend it as we go. I don't know if there's any. We're going to put it on the screen, are we? So everyone can read it. I hope it'll be clear about what our intentions are. So I'm going to read it out. So this is the alternative recommendation to that in the paper. Revised recommendation, Medina Crossing Strategy. The committee notes that the findings of the work carried out to date. Sorry, we'll start that through. The notes the findings of the work carried out to date. In light of the earlier expressed wish of the Cabinet of March 2024 to replace Floating Bridge 6, this committee, the Economy, Regeneration, Transport and Infrastructure Committee, instruct the next required steps for a new floating bridge as planned are funded out of the remaining allocated budget of £350,000 to assess market interest around the supply of a new vessel. To prevent putting the council in the position of becoming the system design authority and ensuring past lessons are learnt, officers are instructed to procure a qualified company to articulate a high-level requirement specification and invite companies to procure solutions. Those recommendations to include minimum of 5 return crossings per hour, replacement vessel to be at the location of existing services to transport pedestrians, cyclists and vehicles between Cowes and East Cowes. I should say existing service, sorry. Our focus on sustainability. Solutions are not predefined and may include, for example, options such as design, build, own and operate, license to operate, joint venture, etc. The committee resolved that a working party, including committee members, staff and users, be created to act as a floating bridge project board. An update report be brought to the January 2026 meeting of this committee with a formal decision either at that meeting for decision on the preferred option for a new floating bridge and beginning the process for tendering or at the latest March 2026. However, by way of contingency, approval from PFR committee will need to be sought for any additional spend to be released from the settlement agreement funding currently held in reserves. So I'm putting that forward, looking for a seconder. You will, Councillor Ward's second that. So now we've got this on the table, we are allowed to go into discussing it, debating it, and any questions you'd like to ask. We have officers here that can answer your questions. Of course, we can still talk about the report within, with all that is still can be discussed, of course. So I expect a few hands up. So I'm going to start with Councillor Love.
Chair, I want to look at the wording of this before we go any further, because I think rather than debating it, I'm not debating it until we've got a form of words that we all agree with, and I'm not happy with some of the wording.
Could you say which part you're not happy with? Be helpful.
So for me, straight away, in light of the expressed wishes of Cabinet, it wasn't a wish of Cabinet. Cabinet determined that we were replacing the floating bridge. So it wasn't a wish. It was Cabinet expressed a decision to replace the floating bridge with another vessel.
In light of the earlier decision of the Cabinet, just get rid of expressed wish and put that decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To replace the floating bridge with another vessel.
With another vessel.
Anybody else has got any? I need a little bit of time to just consider. quite to have a working in and that's what I thought we'd already previously done, to be honest.
I think it was just so everyone was aware of that it was I think that's come out strongly from not only from recommendations from within the council but also from the community as well, that we are all across this.
Just unsure about a committee of whom, what, where and when. You know,
It'd be us as a committee we can decide that. I mean, if you wanted to just put something like that we are, I'm trying to think of the right words here, that is we're given the authority to get that working party together and do its terms of reference. Is that what you want? I mean, it's hard to get too much in the weeds. I think what's important is that we want to have a project board that has got wide membership of the people that use it, the people that work on the ferry.
So Chair, the reason that I'm hesitant is because it's very vague, you know, users, etc. It doesn't say anything there about this is not the right word, right? High quality professionals who build ships. So
staff
so there's
users
something in there about the technical
advisors.
The technical of ship builders, you know, vessel builders.
And marine technical advisors.
Marine could mean anything. I'm trying to be a bit more specific about people who build these types of vessels. That's what I'm trying to. I know that's difficult. So, for instance, you might have somebody on there advising who's not building the vessel, but actually knows about all the millions of different types of ships that are there. That's kind of what I'm trying. It's just this just looks like.
Do you want to put relevant technical expertise, something like that? I know Mr. Rowan wants to come in. I know it's very difficult for us all. We're trying to get to a compromise here, a resolution that is. And I know words are important. I do get that, but also simplicity is important as well. But intention needs to be really clear. Mr. Rowan.
I just think for a point, Chairman, that you're almost doubling up. You're procuring a qualified company to do the exercise, but then you expect another qualified company to be on the board, the working party. It's a bit of a contradiction in terms, really, and an overlap.
I don't see that as because somebody procuring something is one thing, but us all sat around a table like here and now without having an expert in the room who's a shipbuilder, for instance, could is what I'm talking about. Because with respect to everybody, I'm not a shipbuilder, so I need somebody who's sitting and say that design could be improved by if I was to be on that board.
I think, Councillor, I think what Ms. Rowan is trying to say is that when we've gone through this process, we will have that, you know, a qualified builder doing the job. I think that's what he's trying to say. You're saying and having.
I get that, but it's not about the build. It's about we procure first somebody to build. And it's at that point before building that somebody needs to say that that is the right vessel. Am I making sense or not? If I'm not making sense, then tell me. But
can we just say
none of us,
an appropriate technical advice?
A shipbuilder needs to be somebody that knows about this.
Appropriate, I mean, appropriate to the project. I'm just trying to keep this as simple as possible. We can't just yes.
I think, Chairman, I'm picking up that you need another senior supplier then, or another senior technical expert to come in to actually oversee the experts that you're procuring to look at the procurement options. Because any expert that comes in to advise we need to be sure that expert is providing us the right insurances and the right advice in case that advice isn't what we need to take.
So is it any wonder we never do anything?
This is really hard us keep toing and froing. I think that the project board needs to have the right people on there, and I think we need to take that away and work out what the right people are at a later date, if that's okay, because I think we're going to get stuck in the weeds here. And I've got Councillor Jordan, you want to come in quickly?
Thank you, Chair. Very briefly, I urge just to support exactly what you said there. The project board is a project board. It's not to do with procurement in a direct sense. So on the project board, you want people that understand a bit about the project that they're there to make decisions about. That's essentially what happened before, although we ended up with the current floating bridge. But the project board has to have that technical expertise. Otherwise, we might as well. This might as well be the project board.
Yeah.
All us councillors. That'll do. Yeah, I know it.
Thank you. I mean, I'll bring you in a minute, Councillor Jarman, and then I know Councillor Kirk's got his hand up. Apology, Councillor Kirk, I did see you. So if the committee resolved that working party, including committee members, staff, users, and other technical expertise, be created to act as floating bridge reports. You may want someone to come in and tell you about something, tides or something at one point. So necessarily. So, that's the whole thing about a project board. You get information when you need it as you work, it's an initiative process, isn't it? So I've got Councillor Jarman and I've got Councillor Quirk.
I see there are two ways of resolving this. One is to delete everything after the word working party as far as be created to act as the project board, and we don't define those individual members at the moment. Leave that to separate discussion. The other one would be to simply say committee members, staff and qualified stakeholders, and leave the word users or technical advisors or anything out of it. So if it just says committee members, officers and qualified stakeholders, local qualified stakeholders, I'd be happy with that. I think the word users or getting into technical definition of experts is very problematic.
Yeah, I'm relaxed with that. Do you want to read that out again? So committee resolved working party including.
Yes, I would leave off the word including and leave it open to, because we're not commissioning people to join it. It's at their discretion if they join it. So the committee resolved that a working party open to committee members, officers and local qualified stakeholders be created to act as a floating bridge project board.
Yeah.
I know I'm just being pedantic here, but I mean, it's important to me. I think it's important that we have the operators, our staff on the floating bridge. I'm not sure they're actually referred to as officers. I'm not sure.
No, they'd be in the third category, so they would be a qualified stakeholder, wouldn't they? So, yeah.
Yeah. So has that been captured?
Yeah.
Has you captured that?
Yep.
Okay. So. I'll go back to Councillor Love to say that you're satisfied with that. You're happy with that. Councillor Quirk.
I'm happy with that. I think we have to be very careful that we're not giving the decision-making power of this committee and of the policy, finance and resources committee to a third-party group. So that they are an advisory, and it needs to be clear in their terms of conditions, terms of reference. That's what they are. And I think you do need to have people who are involved in the current bridge, because if there are any experts in this country on the Medina Crossing, it's the guys who are actually there now doing it. And more than any other user, our crossing is unique. It's not the same as any crossing anywhere else in the country.
Yeah, that's why I put staff there. That's what. Yeah,
these are all bespoke boats, and they all have their own issues. And at least you need to have that voice there saying, "King hasn't got any clothes on when you talk."
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, there will be a terms of reference will be created for any project board. So, but to me, that's implicit. When you create something, you have to create all the systems around it. So I'm not going to say it has to be meet on a Wednesday and we're going to have, Mrs. Smith, is going to be coming along. And that's not what we're doing in this resolution. It's the intent that there will be a project board of the relevant people to steer the work. Is that what you were about to say, was it? Right, has anyone else got anything else to say about the recommendation before we go into discussion? Everyone's happy with that then, are we? That's really good. Okay, so I've got those, do you want me to read it out again?
Chairman.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, yes. So I was going to read it out and
Yeah.
then we agree. Is that okay? Yeah. So, so the committee notes the findings of the work carried out to date. So there was, I've made a typo. Apologies for that. In light of the earlier decision of the Cabinet of March 2024 to replace the Floating Bridge 6 with another vessel, ERTI committee instruct the next required steps to a new floating bridge as planned are funded out of the remaining allocated budget of £350,000 to assess market interest around the supply of a new vessel. To prevent putting the council in the position of becoming a system design authority and ensuring past lessons are learnt, officers are instructed to procure a qualified company to articulate a high-level requirement specification and invite companies to procure solutions. Those recommendations to include minimum of 5 return crossings per hour, replacement vessel at the location of existing service to transport pedestrians, cyclists and vehicles between Cowes and East Cowes, a focus on sustainability. Solutions are not predefined and may include, for example, options such as design, build, own and operate, license to operate, joint venture, etc. The committee resolved that a working party open to relevant stakeholders, open to committee members, officers, local stakeholders, qualified stakeholders, and implicit in that is the staff on the floating bridge and users. Okay, qualified stakeholders. Be created to act as the floating bridge project board. An update report will be brought to the January 22nd, 2026 meeting of the ERTR committee with a formal decision either at that meeting for decision on the preferred option for the new floating bridge and begin the process for tendering on or at latest March 2026. However, by way of a contingency approval from PFR committee, Policy Finance Resources Committee would need to be sought for any additional spend to be released from the settlement agreement funding currently held in reserve. So now I'm going to move that amendment now. And you're going to second that, Councillor Jordan. Thank you very much.
Can I just make a quick comment, Chair?
Do you want to go into debate now, or is it something you wanted to alter?
Can I just make a comment before I do that?
Yeah, sure.
And it's just around the date of March 2026.
Yeah.
And Councillor Love mentioned it earlier. It's around the dates of this committee and the start of the pre-election period. I would not want to see us put in March 2026 if it falls after the pre-election period, because
Okay.
that constrains us to January and February only.
Should we do you want to put latest March the 1st? Then we can always have a special meeting if necessary. I don't know when the pre-election period starts. Usually about the 15th, isn't it?
I think it's the 20th.
Prior to. Begin the process for tendering at latest. Tendering prior to pre-election period. Excellent. So prior to the commencement of the pre-election period in March. Yeah. Okay. Election period 2026. So we're sure that it's this year, next year, not the next 4 years after that. Thank you for that. So I'm going to open up now. Now we've got a motion that's been amended, put forward. Thank you for your help with that. It's been seconded. I'm now like to open the floor up to discussion, questions, whatever we're going to do. So probably a bit tired after all that. I know I am, but Councillor Ward, and I've got Councillor Jordan. Oh,
Looking back, I know the crew were criticised unfairly. There's also been negative comments about officers. This is unacceptable. Officers do the best job they can. The paper gave this committee, the original paper, gave this committee options for 1, a new floating bridge, 2, do nothing, 3, limited modifications. I just feel that we sat around here on the assumption we're going to have a new bridge. We haven't made that decision yet. Okay. Now, I think this decision must come back to this committee, whether we have a new bridge or not, or perhaps select one of the other options. In the intervening period, the reliability of floating bridge 6 should be closely monitored. I know it is now, but I know people have no faith in that. But let's just see where we are at the end of this period, okay? So we can confirm, is it good? It allows us to make an informed decision, a qualified decision about the floating bridge. That's really all I've got to say, Chair. It is, like I say, it's a very emotional matter to some people, and I can understand that. But unfortunately, we have to be straight thinking, straightforward. There we go. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ward. Councillor Jordan.
No, I'll wait, Chair. Thank you.
Okay then. Councillor Quirk.
The big issue with this is the 151 officer has stated that we can't borrow the money. Now, at some stage, we're going to have to find out the way around that and how to actually make it happen. But there are issues around the funding of this and how much it's going to cost and how it's going to be funded that are parties to the decision. And you can't continue with the decision to go ahead made by 8 people, not the 39 people, and that we need to be happy that we are getting value for money for the work that is done. There seems to be an undue haste in sorting this out. Paul Huckley said facts don't cease to be facts if they're not observed. The floating bridge now is operating at around 96, 97% operational functionality. That's not bad. And so the urgency, I support the actual principle of replacing the bridge, but the urgency and the haste of this seems to be trying to sort of get it in before the next set of elections. And the next set of elections, a big question will come up as to whether this is a bridge or a ferry, because that could change who's actually becomes responsible for it. But I just think we need to consider this again on an ongoing basis when we actually have the facts in front of us as to what's going to be involved in the costing and the feasibility, because we've got a report here that says you can't do 5 crossings a month or a day like now. So we need to actually be sure that what we are asking for is actually deliverable.
Thank you very much, Councillor Quirk. So I've got Councillor Jarman next.
Thank you, Chair. So I agree with Councillor Quirk that the reliability at the present time is very high, but that comes at a cost to this council of £1 million a year. And I'm very sure that this council could spend £1 million a year on other things, particularly on children's services and adult social care, with great efficiency and direction. And I look forward to that situation being resolved with the floating bridge and those funds being returned to the council rather than provided as an ongoing subsidy. The issue of funding, which has been raised, is very important. That's why we've included in the motion the option for this to be funded by a third party. If someone were willing to come forward and offer to design, build and operate this, or to license it and bring in their own vessel, I don't really care what that solution is. All of those options would preclude the necessity for this council to put in, whether it's 9.7 or 2.8 or some other number, and that would be of considerable advantage to us. I know that we have highly qualified shipbuilders on the island who have design technology skills and an intimate knowledge of the river and its flows, who could come forward to deliver that solution. And if they're listening now, please take note of that, and we wait to hear from you. So let's applaud the skills that we have as an island. Let's look forward to those solutions being delivered, and let's look forward to us being able to spend that £1 million a year on better things. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jordan.
Thank you, thank you, Chair. So I wasn't intending to say too much because as I seconded this recommendation, amendment, whatever we wish to call it, what is it? It's an amendment, isn't it, Justin? Is this an amendment? It's an amendment.
It's a motion now.
It's now a motion.
It's your motion.
It's a motion.
Substantive, yeah.
So and that for me captures where I want us to be right now. But I keep hearing the repeated comments. I really should just sit quiet and listen to them and forget them because I've heard them for so long. But let me just comment on some of these things because it's just adding to the misinformation and misunderstanding here. So Councillor Jarman has pointed this out. It's £1 million a year. I don't think that's disputed by anyone. It's costing this council. Doesn't seem to be considered in any of our comments. All I keep hearing is can this council afford a new floating bridge, whatever it is? Is it 9.7? Well, let me talk about the 9.7 million. It's a guesstimate. Yes. It's a guess. It's a guess, Colin. It's a guess. It's a guess. It's a guess. It's a guess. It's a guess because you haven't been to the market to establish what the costs are, and neither have I. But I've spoken to local shipbuilders that have given me a different price, but that's for another day. Consultants, well, it took me about 5 minutes to go and look up our consultants that provided this report, you know, that we are, the Councillor Quirk is asking us to accept as information and data and facts. That's right. Of course, we discovered in 5 minutes they're not marine engineers. Neither of them are marine engineers. In fact, the subcontractor is a civil engineer. Civil engineer. They build infrastructure for ports and marinas. That's what they do. But here we are with you know, thick document with their recommendations, and they steered the consultation. Yeah, it's not a great look for. I'm not prepared to accept too much that they have to say on that basis. Cost of the floating bridge, I have a different costing from a local shipbuilder. It's for another day. Councillor Quirk, it's not an attack on you, Councillor Quirk, but undue haste to sort this out. Undue haste. Undue haste, Councillor Quirk. That is not an attack on you, Chris. But this has been going on for a long time. And 2021, when the Alliance administration came in, we set about trying to resolve it. Now, that's 5 years ago, nearly 5 years ago already. There's no undue haste. It's the opposite. We're trying to resolve something that's taken so long. Bridge. There's no bridge. It's all been looked at years and years ago. You can't build a bridge at the crossing point. Okay. Well, We accept that. Okay, well, we can't build a bridge. You can't build a bridge at the crossing point. I think, you know, there are some things we've all got to accept. Yeah. Okay. Modifications. Well, you know, that was mentioned. The modifications, part of the recommendation from the non-qualified consultants, to spend between 400,000 to 2.3 million, something like that. Modifications that Southampton University modelled and ruled out. The chain issue can't be resolved by replacing the chains. This has been modelled. This is, we could dispute Southampton University at your peril, that their modelling and fact-finding and final decision on what could and couldn't be done is wrong. I prefer to think it's right. And ditto for the thrusters. Again, there are issues with the thrusters. We've heard from a member of the public who actually piloted this. It is not a viable option to modify. And finally, I guess, which narrows down our option, would have been options, you know, replace the bridge or do nothing. Do nothing. It's not do nothing, because somewhere this council has to find the money to subsidise the existing floating bridge if you do nothing, to the tune of £1 million a year. I'm not hearing where that's coming from. I heard earlier that it's been budgeted for this year, and I'm prepared to accept that. I'm happy to accept that. It's been budgeted for this year. From April next year, it's not budgeted for. And so the budget process this year and work of the PFR committee, I'm sure, and then full council when the budget proposal comes forward, will have to take account of that subsidy. But I'm not hearing it anywhere in this cost. All I'm hearing is the floating bridge will cost money you can't afford. I suggest to you all, you can't afford not to do it, because £1 million, it's been mentioned earlier, per year over the life of the vessel, which I think we can all agree is 30 years. I've heard that, and I've not heard that challenged, is £30 million. It's actually 900,000 a year, so 27 million if we want to be absolutely accurate. It's £27 million that this council will have to find in 30 years. But I'm not hearing it. It's not reflected anywhere. All I'm hearing is you can't afford a guess of 9.7 million. My suggestion to you is you can't afford not to do it, because that cost to this council is something you can't discount, and we have got to find it from somewhere. And Councillor Jarman touched upon it. It is going to come from other services, potentially adult social care, because it's one of the biggest costs to this council. Nearly 80% of our budget goes on social care, not adult, but social care. So there we are, Chair. Thank you for indulging me in that. And I'm glad I seconded that, because I think that is the way forward for this committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jordan. And I've got, who had the hand? Councillor Love, you had your hand up next. And you want to speak again, Councillor Quirk? Of course you can.
Thank you, Chair. I came into office in 2017, the week after the elections, when this vessel came into operation. It has been since that time a nemesis, like a rock around my throat, from local people, from businesses going bust, from every direction, and at every point I have always maintained that this vessel should be replaced right from the beginning almost, or certainly within a couple of years of it being there. But I want to address this report. Firstly, I want to address a point that was made upstairs by one of the people upstairs. And that is, sorry, when I find it here on my bit of paper, officers state no guarantee of fixing the issues with modifications in this report. That's what they state clearly in point 35. It's there. So we could take a risk at spending 400,000 to 2 million to try to repair something that there are no guarantees at. They've identified that in their report. 18 months ago, we sat in this room and I heard our leader say, tonight we are making a decision to replace the floating bridge. This wasn't said earlier in the first report, with another vessel. It didn't talk about modification. It said vessel. We've spent 18 months going back to the beginning of square one, looking at bridges, looking at tunnels, looking at all sorts of other things. And it's exhausting me, never mind anybody else, to listen to that. 18 months of wasted time. To come here today to have to start again. At that meeting, I clearly heard the leader say, I don't know why we're talking about the Medina Crossing, because tonight it's a floating bridge. That's what I mean. Those are the words that were said. But what we've done is we've gone right back to the beginning, even though we had evidence from 3S's presented on which a decision was based. What has that cost us? Well, certainly in a longitude of time, it's cost us 18 months. 1.5 million, dare I say? That's what it's cost in terms of losses between then and now. And every moment that we delay the process of delivering a new floating bridge, it costs us more and more money. That's before I talk about depreciation of what we can actually purchase with the ring-fenced money that was provided. And I say ring-fenced because in this report, it says that the money is not ring-fenced. But I sat in meetings that you were at where councillors said this funding is ring-fenced. That's what was said. It was said to East Cowes Town Council. It was said to West Cowes Town Council. Officers say it's not ring-fenced. And I say that's not right. So then I look at this report. This is the worst report I have ever received, ever, at this council. It is a guesstimate. I'll tell you why it's a guesstimate, because here it talks about in point 38, 9.7 million pounds. And I have spoken to officers repeatedly over this time. I practically begged officers to go and speak with shipbuilders to find out what a thumbnail cost might be. Not with any, guarantees or, etc. When they didn't do it, I had to do that because it was the only way that I could quantify for myself what was happening. I cannot believe that 18 months after the question has never been asked about what a floating bridge might cost in whatever guise it is, without any details. I cannot believe that that has not been done. I'll tell you what was told to me by shipbuilders, and I'm not going to name them because that's not right and proper. They said between 3 and 5 million pounds and 6 million as an absolute maximum to replace a floating bridge with an all-electric, diesel, donkey-driven, whatever it is, vessel. I asked that question. Why did officers not ask that question? Because that is fundamental to what we're talking about here tonight. We also asked for, and what I expected in this report, which is why I say I'm absolutely mortified by what's written in this document. The leader clearly said, we will review different operational models, leasing, part ownership, electric, as I've said, donkey driven, whatever it is, okay? And none of that is in here. And in fact, it actually says in the report, it was discounted by officers rather than bringing it to us for us to discuss. I expected a report to contain all of that information. And the report itself says that they've taken expert advice. But when I ask the question, as I have asked the question in previous meetings all along, who quantified that estimate? Who quantifies this estimate? If you haven't asked the question, how much will a floating bridge be, could be, of a ship builder who build these things, then how can you arrive at these figures? And so I'm mortified by this report because we've lost £1.5 million in the time it's taken us to get from the 18 months to now. And we'll lose another 1.5 million perhaps in the time it gets to starting building it. And so, Councillor Quirk, whilst I don't wish to, time is, I cannot believe in 18 months, we should have been at this point in 6 months, never mind 18 months. We can't go on and on. So I'm glad that this recommendation contains a timeline for which it is to report. Sadly, I feel as though we've had to tie the recommendation down to the wording because it was so loosely interpreted in terms of what, there was no need to look at bridges because it was clearly stated. It's all there on the records for everybody to see. Perhaps we councillors were perhaps guilty of not actually looking at the very real detail of the recommended minutes. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you. Of the minutes. Perhaps that was our fault for that. But ultimately, we all knew what we were expecting. So I am pleased that we have managed tonight to come up with a different recommendation at the cost of everybody. I know that I cannot go on having to try to justify to the people of East Cowes and Cowes what has happened with the floating bridge. We can't go back to the beginning, but we can move forward. We've run out of runway. Let's face it, we've run out of runway. We've got elections next year. That's a real problem because we might not be here. In fact, some people are saying none of us will be here, which is an even bigger problem because then it'll all have to start again, won't it? So it needs to be done now in a timely way. So I thank everybody for their efforts tonight, but I have to say, I'm going to be asking the Chief Executive some serious questions about this document. 60 grand for guesstimates. Totally unacceptable. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Love. I had Councillor Quirk and Councillor Stewart and Mr. Owen, would you like to, if you hold fire a second, do you just want to respond to?
Sorry, just the point of guesstimates, that it was benchmarked information based on industry information that came up with that figure of 9.7 million, and it also includes a 35% contingency. Steel prices, the previous vessel cost 3.5 million 2016. Steel prices have gone up significantly since then. All other manufacturing prices have gone up significantly. So it's just, in terms of a guess, it was an educated guess based on industry information.
We don't guess when we're spending millions and millions of pounds. It's unbelievable. You could have asked that question of a shipbuilder.
Thank you, thank you. Councillor Quirk, come back specifically on something. I've got Councillor Stewart hasn't spoken yet, but.
Very quick. I wasn't suggesting that we built a bridge. I was saying that under the new mayor, ferries won't be under a mayor and the bridge will be under a mayor. So the definition is so who is going to be responsible for it after May is a bit of a question mark.
Thank you, that was helpful.
It's not part of the transport.
But I actually agree with what's been said about the reports. The trouble is the reports don't tell us that if we get a new bridge, a new floating bridge, it won't still cost us a lot of money to keep it and it'd be running at a loss. That's, it would be a really easy decision if we knew that a new floating bridge will cover its costs, but we don't. There's nothing in any of the papers that I've seen that actually says that will, and that was what I was saying for in terms of making the decision. I don't want to make a decision that's going to ultimately continue to cost us £1 million a year. And so I think it's not haste in terms of when we started, it's haste from where we are now. We haven't got the information.
And that's why it should have been in the paper.
Yeah.
18 months and it's not in the papers.
Unbelievable. That was my point.
Good point.
we need to be reassured. And I love the idea of having a third party involved, and I love it even more if it's a local third party involved, because we should be supporting the shipbuilding on the island. And we used to be a real major shipbuilding community.
Bring back the donkeys, Chris.
Yeah. So that was, I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, we appreciate that clarification. I mean, that is it, that you know, the whatever the new vessel is going to be like, we don't know what the costs are. I mean, I'd hope that the running costs are lower, and that would be inherent in any design. I think sometimes if you look at some of the design elements of the vessel we have now, that could contribute to the extra costs. I've got Councillor Stewart waiting to come in, but you want a clarification? Yeah.
Very quickly on that point, what we do know is that the previous floating bridge operated at a profit. We do know that. That's a fact.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's always worthwhile saying the last 2 years of its life, the breakwater was in, and also a separation of the passengers and vehicles. Councillor Stewart, you're very, very patient. Over to you now.
I'm enjoying listening to a lot of comments and countervailing arguments. First of all, I have to echo Councillor Ward's statement. I utterly respect the efforts of officers and experts in producing this report, and all of the efforts that have gone in to try and make things happen. It is a messy financial position that the council finds itself in. And I understand comments from other councillors, such as Councillor Mosdale recently, about if that is the cost, we can't do it. So we have to take these things into account. However, as councillors, we also have to place weight on the island's best interests, and that may not always match what we see coming in figures. And there are a number of underlying assumptions within this report. I have been through it several times, which I'm not sure I would agree with, and I suspect others wouldn't. There appears to be, with the suggestion of a new ferry, that it could not improve the frequency of crossing from the current 3.15 crossings per hour. There is no suggestion that the income might improve if the ferry itself is better in some ways. And certainly the costs of a new ferry may not be as much as the current one, which is a bit of a Horlicks. So my view is very much that we have to look directly at replacing the ferry that is there now. Amending it, adjusting it, seems to be even more risky than looking at a new ferry. So yes, I would support the ideas and proposals of looking at getting a new ferry. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stewart. I've got Councillor Beston.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Fuller.
Just looking forward to the update report that's will be due on the 22nd of January, and to get an idea of, to manage expectations of this committee. I wouldn't expect a full costed report in January, of course. Final report, whatever that looks like financially, and to manage expectations of this committee to make that ultimate decision. Are we likely to see, can we see full costings of any new proposed vessel? And if that's the case, will the final decision, as was listed in the 3 options, that again come to the table? Will it be for decision to purchase a new bridge, then a decision to modify? I just need some clarity on that.
Thank you. So you're saying whatever when we get the any expressions come back. So what the art of the possible is with a replacement vessel. You want to know is, will the other options still be on the table? I don't know actually, because are we discounting them now and moving forward now? So you're saying, will there still be? Yes. Yeah. 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 I don't know if we can say that or not, because.
Sorry, I shouldn't interrupt.
Yeah.
Chair, I remind the committee of the decision that was taken on the 14th of March. Tonight, we are voting to replace the floating bridge with another vessel. So that decision to replace it has already been made. Our focus should now be on what are the costings, what are the options, what are the alternatives. Within that, that's what I believe that because we've discounted all the other options.
The only way that would be coming back on the table, I guess, would be if it was the options came back and there were no other options. You know, nobody said they could replace the vessel. You know, that's the only reason I can't see that.
I think that affordability consideration has to be made, Chairman, when the results come back from the bidders or the potential bidders for the floating bridge. If it involves investment from the council, then that is a decision that needs to be made by the council at that time as to whether that is affordable and how that would be funded.
Any paper will have financial, the financial risks in it, wouldn't they, quite clearly?
Thank you. I think that's where I was going with that. So I just need to be clear, if that's the case, if there is nothing coming back, where does this leave officers, and where does this leave this committee? I mean, it's quite an open-ended question, but that could be a possibility. I know Phil has mentioned White Shipyard, etc., which seems a viable option, but that may not be the case. So I just wanted to know what to expect if that is that scenario.
We'll be expecting what is the art of the possible from all different options. And we put a couple there in the recommendation. You know, it could be design, build, operate, own, maintain. It could be a license, whatever it is. That will all need to be assessed, wouldn't it? And the financial outlay of the council always has to be, completely at the heart of any report there. But we don't know what could be a joint venture. We could be asked to put a penny in. I don't know. We don't know yet. So until we know, yep. Sorry, Mr. Sandcott, didn't see that.
Sorry, Chair, just to come in. Around the actual recommendation, what you are looking for is preliminary market engagement and an outcome from that. It's not a formal procurement. There's no contractual commitments on the back of that. There may be some potential bidders that actually see it and think, well, no, we'll wait and see what happens, and we won't even engage in that. So it's just setting the scene there that you will get findings and outcomes from a preliminary market engagement to inform next stages, really. And based on those next stages, you're going to then need to make decisions, really.
Taking one step at a time, but tonight our decision is to do the other soft market testing, we want to describe it like that, for a new vessel on a very high level specifications. That's where we're at. What comes back from that, we don't know yet. So any future decision will be predicated on what comes back, and it's a process. It's just one step along that road.
Can I suggest that we've spent a lot of time now, that we go to the vote on this now?
I was just I'd like to say a few more words myself, if you let me, Councillor Love. Would that be all right? Then we could go, and then I'm happy to go to the vote. But Councillor Ward.
Chair.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Councillor Fuller, you got lost in
apologies, I haven't had the opportunity to speak yet.
No, I'm sorry. It was lots of to and froing, and
I would
on my list.
I would like to come in if that's okay. The floating bridge has been a millstone around the neck of this local authority for a very, very long time now. Every time we bring in a new floating bridge, there always seems to be teething problems. I remember historically time and time when Floating Bridge 5 came in, the uproar that there was in the first 12 months of that coming into operation was incredible. But you know, with this new vessel, the size, the chain depth, the noise, they've all brought with them problems. I just want to get on and do something. You know, the fact that we gave the thumbs up 18 months ago as cabinet to seeing us moving forward on this, and to be in the position where we are tonight, where it's from our point of view as councillors, we haven't really moved forward very far in the last 18 months. And I just want to see this, you know, I don't want to blight further councils with the problem that Floating Bridge 6 has become. That said, I think that the guys that work on the vessel are absolutely fantastic. They have done a brilliant job keeping Trigger's broom in action, and I think you know, we need to thank those guys for doing the work that they can. Totally in support of the recommendation, and I'm just keeping everything crossed. I think with the amount of scrutiny that there has been over the last 6, 7, 8 years on the floating bridge, we need to get this right, and I welcome the opportunity to work with qualified stakeholders to get that. So yes, I am in full support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fuller. I've got Councillor Ward, but before we go on, we still do got to finish this item off. We still have some other items to do. I'm going to make the suggestion, it might just focus our minds, that we extend the meeting by quarter of an hour to 8:15. I'd like to put that forward as a motion now. I was looking for a seconder. Thank you. If necessary, thank you. All those in favour? That's everyone. Thank you. I think Councillor Jarman, or you did. Yeah, I don't want to. I know you don't want to, but yeah, it might just sharpen our minds anyway. Thank you. Councillor Ward.
Yeah, this discussion about whether it comes back or forth after this action has been carried out. I'm all in favour of that action, but I want to guarantee that it comes back here. People, yeah, you saying yes?
It will come, yeah, any decision will come to this committee. However, if there's a financial decision, my understanding it will have to go to policy, but well, on to them. We're just put a little stop on the way, if that's clear. So I just wanted to say a few things myself. I've been, I was involved back in 2017, very involved in the East Cowes community there, and I was very pleased that Councillor Love was elected as well that year. And I saw the pain it caused. It was really disruptive when the new vessel came in. And this isn't just our community that was separated by a vessel that wasn't delivering when it should have done. It was about the local economy as well, and the damage to local businesses was really quite terrible to see. And the effects from that have been remedied as far as the vessel goes. It now is reliable, as we heard. But unfortunately, the trust and the reputation of the vessel has been damaged. And during this last few months, when I knew this was coming forward, I was just asked people I might meet, have a chat, and what do you think of the floating bridge? And it's really hard to hear, because I know all the effort that has gone into getting it now reliable, all the money that's going to make it reliable now, all the work that's gone in, the modifications. I mean, you can just go on and on and on, but the trust and reputation's been lost. I honestly feel that's such an important thing. We'll never get that back. So people won't use it because they can't rely on it. They don't think they can rely on it. And yes, we can say it's working, 92% of the time, doing really well. But when it's not frequent enough, people don't think, oh, I'll use the floating bridge. I'll go, actually, I may just miss one. Can I hang around for another 20 minutes? I'll drive round, or we'll think of another way to get around. So any more modifications on the vessel are never going to get over that situation that has been created with its inception, unfortunately. It's your local economy of both areas. And I was talking to a young man recently who works in the hospitality industry in Cowes, And he said it was really affects them because if the floating bridge isn't on, the Jenny works, but it stops at 10:30. If they're working till midnight, how do they get home? And they're young people, they don't drive, they have to go and get 2 buses around Newport. It's expensive, it's late at night. You know, it's an impact that goes on and on and on. This community really does deserve a reliable, frequent crossing that I'm hoping will get some ideas back and some responses to the market that actually maybe we can get back to profit making again. Now would that be amazing? Even break even, I'd be delighted with. But it is painful to see the amount of money that it's costing us each year. It's painful to see how it affects our community, and it's been going on for too long. So I'm so pleased this evening that we've managed to come to a recommendation that gives comfort to the community and the residents that we can move this forward. And I do thank officers for all the hard work on this. I know it's been a lot of work and it's been a lot of angst. I know we've had some very lively discussions behind closed doors, but I think you understand the passion from members is because that this crossing is so important to us. We want to get it right. I know you want to get it right as well, but I think now we've come to a way that we can all work together to get the desired outcome. So that's all I'm going to say on that. I just wanted to finish on that. Does anyone want to say anything? I've got Councillor PC Wilcox. Did you want to come back? You are enabled if you want to say anything at this stage.
I think I said it all earlier. I put all the costings in. I put in the emotional cost, the emotional problems that this is causing, absolutely everything else. And as I say, talking to those kids at Cowes Enterprise College, without a doubt, every one of them, and that was with no prompting from me, wanted a new bridge on there because it's just not adequate. You've got disabled kids that can't even get on and off the Jenny Lee properly. It's just totally wrong. So don't do it for me. Don't do it for us. We're not going to be around. Do it for the next generation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Weekly. I wasn't sure if there are any other members online that want to come in before I move forward. Can't see anybody. So members, are you happy if we go to the vote now? I've read out the amended recommendation. I've typed up the amendments. I've sent that off to committee. I think. Did you want me to read out again? I'll just check it. Apologies. So I'm not intending to read it out again unless you really like me to. No? Okay, great. I think we've all heard it by now, and it will be typed up and be with our minutes. So everyone's right. So we have the recommendation that is now became our substantive, replacing the recommendation of printed papers. I've proposed it. We've had a seconder, Councillor Jordan. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you everyone for coming. For this item. Our guests, thank you very much for your perseverance. Officers, thank you very much. It's been difficult, but we got there in the end. I think it's probably the best thing I can say. So thank you. Right, we now go on to item 6, the committee work plan. I just want to give people a couple of seconds just to quieten down to probably. Thank you. Right, thank you, members. So if we move on to the next part, which is our work plan, you've got that in front of you, the items coming to our next few meetings. I don't know if we wanted to add in addition there on the January the 22nd, that will appear, that we'll be having an update on the floating bridge. Is there any, Mr. Rowland, was there anything you wanted to add on to our work plan or any discussions, recent discussions? No, I know there's a couple of things that came up at recent briefings that we had. So maybe we just go to our next briefing and then just, if anything is to go on the forward plan, then the work plan, we'll pick that up.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I'm aware, there aren't any more decisions to be made that will be going on the work programme, but we never know as things evolve. But at the moment, no.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. So members, are you satisfied? That's our work plan. If any other items need to go on there, we have to just agree as a committee. So we're satisfied as it is now. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. Right, so members' question time. I do have written questions. Yeah, we've got 9 minutes, but we haven't. We've actually got quarter past. But I'll try and get to do the 9 minutes for you. I've got a written question before we go to any verbal questions. A written question from Councillor Andrew Garrett to the chair. The speed review reported to Cabinet early this year set out for Horsebridge Hill that the level of development on some sections meets the criteria for 30-mile-per-hour speed limit. What progress has been made on implementing this? And I thank the Highways team for putting this response together. A project manager will be recruited to manage the prioritisation of the sites included in the speed review and to commission design of appropriate engineering solutions for the top priority sites. The prioritisation will take into account the results of the speeding review and the latest casualty data available. Funding has also been requested through the capital bidding process for the 2026 to 27 financial year to implement the completed design on the top priority site. In addition to engineering changes, any change in speed limit will require a traffic regulation order. This takes 6 to 9 months to draft, advertise, consult, take a report to committee with objections and a seal. Southern Water will be working on Horsebridge Hill between January to March 2026 and will reduce the speed limit via a temporary traffic regulation order as part of their traffic management plan if this is required. I have a question here from Councillor PC Wilcox. I think she's just gone. Okay. So can the chair advise how the committee will seek assurance that all stages of this procurement were conducted in accordance with the council's contract standing orders and the public contracts regulations? Any deviations from the published tender timetable are fully explained, and the award of the contract has been or will formally be published in line with the council's procurement requirements. The response again, this is very technical response. I appreciate this being written up. The appointment of the 3 professional technical advisors in relation to development of the findings of this report were formally advised on the Council's electronic tendering system in line with the Council's contract standing orders and public procurement regulations and the Council. The 3 Medina Crossing projects have all been added and published on Pro Contract. Project numbers listed below for reference: technical DN 753733. Financial DN 748721, legal DN 742396. The award decisions were then formally advertised on Contracts Finder, and the links are there below in the I won't read them out. The links are there in the written response. Based on any decision reached by this committee and any relevant committees such as Policy, Finance, Resources, any subsequent procurement needs will need to comply with the Council's constitution, including the contract standing orders and the Procurement Act 2023 and secondary legislation, the Procurement Regulations 2024. So question 2, in respect of timescales to undertake this phase of the works, i.e. the options, appraisal and reporting recommendations back to members, this is broadly in line with the original timetable. Deviations related to the original tender process being changed to an open tender to accommodate all potential bidders, and this took longer than the original quoted timescale anticipated reporting to committee in June 2025 was put back primarily due to establishment of the new committee reporting structure and alignment of dates, plus the need to plan with insufficient timescales for the consultation and engagement process, which was conducted through July and August 2025. Any subsequent procurement needs for any follow-up activity would likely require a project board to manage and monitor progress in line with the formally set out programme plan. Question 3. As noted in the response to question 1, the appointment of the technical advisor to undertake this initial piece of activity was both procured and awarded in line with formal procurement requirements. The links to Contracts Finder award notices included in that response. Again, based on any subsequent procurement needs as a result of decisions reached, will need to take into account the requirements as set out in the Council's own contract standing orders and, where applicable, the wider public sector procurement legislation. I've got the final question, and I believe it's Councillor Becca Cameron. Would you like to read your question out, or shall I read it for you? Okay, I can do that for you. So Councillor Becca Cameron is with us, but I'll read it out on her behalf. A lorry or tanker was recently seen emptying untreated sewage from a ship into the Norton pumping station. Southern Water has stated in writing that it was pumping chemicals. Photographs show that the lorry did not have the required signage, and Southern Water has no licence to do this. Will the committee investigate this serious matter and take the appropriate action? This is a written response here. Council officers have submitted an environmental information request to Southern Water to understand this query in greater detail. However, it must be noted that in England and Wales, water companies are held accountable by Ofwat, the economic regulator, and the Environment Agency. Ofwat holds companies accountable for service, price and efficiency, while the Environment Agency holds them accountable for environmental performance, particularly regarding wastewater discharge. And I just like to say to Mr. Owen, will we be able to have the results of this information request sent to the committee and also to Councillor Cameron? Is that okay?
Yeah, we can come back with the results of that inquiry, yes.
Thank you very much.
I would like to add to that the one thing that was omitted in the reply was the lack of any HAZChem warning on the tanker itself. So a declaration of interest that I was out with my walking group and actually witnessed with my walking group and took photographs of one of the tankers at the scene pumping material out, which was later disclosed by Southern Water to be chemicals into the Norton pumping station. The earlier time we observed that, it was quite clear from the overflow running from the power station into Yarmouth Harbour that the material contained a brown slurry with lumpy bits, which I would hesitate to call chemicals and would probably assign to some other material. Ian's laughing at me here. I'm being very careful with my words. The bottom line is that the incident was first denied by Southern Water. Then it was postulated by them that it was chemicals. I believe they've seesawed between that and sewage. The driver tankers themselves identified it as effluent that had been brought from the mainland from a Lithuanian tanker from their sewage and bilge, which was being emptied into the sewage network on the Isle of Wight. And as we further were informed that it's occurring at 3 different locations on the island. So when it went back to being a declaration that it was chemicals, we then submitted further photographs showing that the vehicles did not display any HAZChem warnings at all. So if they were discharging, as finally claimed, chemicals, I believe that's probably a matter that is not Ofwat, is probably not the Environment Agency, but is probably a police issue, because the declaration of HAZChem warnings on a vehicle is a highways issue. I'll look to our officer who's here from the strategic directorate that covers highways to confirm if that is a highways legal issue. We have both highways and legal here, so I'm sure one of them can advise us.
Ahead, Mr. Rowe.
I think we need to take that away, Councillor Jarman. It's a technical point on a highways issue that we don't normally enforce. It's a police enforcement issue, so we will take that away. Plus the information, the additional information that you provided on the incidents.
Councillor John, if you shared the information in the form of an email, that might be helpful because you gave quite a lot this evening. And
I'm sure myself and Councillor Cameron can share the exchange with Southern Water, which is
anything can be shared with our team, that'd be really helpful.
It does include all the photographs.
Are there any other questions from members? Yes, Councillor Ward. Can we go home? Well, let me just check where we are on the agenda. Let me just check here. Yes, we can.
No, there's a forward plan, Chair. There
done.
is a committee work plan item.
We've done that. All done. Yep. So just on the questions by councillors.
We too late to comment on that. Sorry, colleagues.
You can ask a
Uh,
question. We're still in question. I haven't closed the meeting. We're still in members' question time. You can ask a question.
Well, indulge me then. I notice in terms of question, I notice on our work plan, there is not one item about the PFI contract. And I think that's an oversight on the part of this committee. And I know that there are issues, as you well know, that we're not hearing about. And I would have suggested, so forgive me, I would suggest that we had some kind of report brought to the January meeting, particularly on areas of disagreement.
I think we're due to have a briefing, but yes, if is everyone in agreement that we have a report come to January? Yes. Sorry. Oh, you say what you're going to say, then I'll bring you in, Mr. Rowland. What, no, I'm going to bring Councillor Jarman first. Sorry, because I want. What do you want to say?
It's all right, my battery's going flat on my speaker here. We've been here too long, I think, as to Ian's point. I'm very happy to have a report brought forward to us on that occasion. I would ask that it includes a summary of the quite large number of items which are in dispute with Island Roads, and some of those I understand include billable items which go back years, which have not yet been agreed or paid. So a fairly detailed report, simply categorising those issues would be very helpful. Thank you.
Mr. Rowland, now you've heard the expectations.
I think it's about the basis of that report, because some of these items are commercially confidential. Some of the items have been resolved since Councillor Jordan was a portfolio holder. So it's just a question to the committee. Could I suggest that we do the briefing first, and then if there are any issues that fall out of that briefing, we can bring those forward as a report? And also, what recommendations do the committee want to make in regards to the PFI based on the information that comes through? So I would suggest, bear with me, Chair, that we have an informal briefing from the PFI, and then the questions might arise from there that might want to become to the committee.
That's fine, but I think what we have to do is we have to put it on the work plan. We can always take it off the work plan. We have to put it on. So we're going to. I think we've got a recommendation now to put it on. That was what you were going to say, was it? Recommendation to put it on the work plan for that meeting. Then the report will then the report can be then framed by our briefing. And if we go, actually, we don't need to know anything at all, we can take it off. We can't put it on without doing it at a committee meeting.
Saying what, Chair? Because are you saying disputes? Because we're not in dispute with Island Roads. What are you actually saying goes on the committee report?
Through you, Chair. I avoided the word dispute. I used the word disagreement. And so there are numbers of disagreements. Some are resolved, some are not. This committee should be concerned about the policy this council takes towards their relationship with the, if it's not the first, the second largest contract this council has after the waste or before the waste. I think can't show it, but and we should be concerned about that, because there are policy decisions to be made about how you manage that relationship, and disagreements between us, which may or may not be disputes, may or may not end up as disputes, or further, are of concern to this committee. So the disagreement. So to answer the question is, it's got to go on the forward plan. B, as many informal meetings as you like between now and then. Very happy to sit in the room, Colin, and talk about the disagreements that this council has with the provider of our highways PFI contract. I don't care how you do that.
I was going to suggest we just have an update on Island Road's contract as the title to go on our forward plan. I think that encompasses many things. Councillor Love, is that you?
I'm happy with that, Chair, and I certainly am not suggesting. I'm not suggesting that we discuss in public commercially confidential information. Of course not. What I'm asking for is areas of dispute that this council has. I could list them now, or many of them. I'm not going to do that, Colin, but I could list those. They're not commercially confidential because they're disagreements that we may have. I'm not interested in this committee going into the detail of the dispute. No, but Colin, this committee, I know them because of my time I spent. This committee does not, and I'm afraid, in my view, on our work plan, the absence of something about the PFI contract is a very big oversight.
To bring you in, hang on a second. So I've got here an update on the Iron Roads contract. That's going on our work plan.
But there's no decisions being made, Chairman.
Chair. There could be, Colin, there could be a decision this committee makes on the policy that this council adopts about managing that contract, the policy. So, for example, I'll give you an example. This council might decide to have a zero tolerance policy. It might. Zero tolerance. So when there are contractual errors, this committee might decide as a policy to enforce the contract on those cases. So there is a policy decision. They might take a different thing, which is to negotiate or mediate. They might do all of those things, but there's a policy decision for this committee to be taken.
Yeah. So, thank you, Chair. I think what really matters to the public is transparency. Is that I agree that there may be areas that we cannot discuss in public. I don't like the idea of backroom meetings and briefings in private where we pick and choose what we do or don't want to. And I think it's a really good point that you've raised. I don't know all of those disputes. I think I might know about some of them, disputes and disagreements. But I think clearly there are some there because they've been identified, and now that we've identified it in a public way in this meeting, I think that members of the public will want to know where there are disagreements and things without necessarily having the detail, and that I do think needs to come forward, because if I don't know there's a disagreement, then I can't support or help resolve what that is. And yes, so I think that is the right way to go, but I don't want us to get into a position where we go into some briefing where we pick and choose, we can bring that but we can't bring that. As long as we all know the terms of we can't discuss certain things because prior, then but we should know that there is a disagreement over that lamppost on that river in the sky. You know, we should know that sort of stuff, shouldn't we?
Thank you. So, yes, Mr. Rowland.
Yeah, I just want it to be on record that there are no disputes at the moment in the terms of the way the contract is written. There are no disputes with Island Roads. It has to be clear there. There are no contractual disputes in the process of the amendment. There are some disagreements, and you will get disagreements from time to time all the way through a 25-year private finance initiative contract, as you will with the waste contract.
Yeah. It's like a marriage. It's like a marriage. You might have disagreements.
I use the word disagreement for that reason. I do not want to hear about disputes. I know some of the disputes. I know the ones that have been resolved. I want this committee to understand where areas of disagreement lie for this council, taxpayers' money, £28 million a year, and the disagreement with the contractor who may not be delivering what this council expects. We should know that, not the confidential information.
I'm just going to check with my legal advisor. Am I permitted to put this as a work plan? Are we permitted to, if we agree to it, as an update? Because Mr. Rowland's saying it's not a decision as such, but there may be a decision. But until it goes on, I put updates. Yeah, put update on Island Roads contract.
Chair, yeah, I believe you are. There's nothing to prevent it within the constitution.
Thank you. That's all I need to know. Right. So I've got it here as update on Island Roads contract, our 22nd of January meeting. No, stay. All those in favour? That's all agreed. Thank you. Right. Has anybody got any more questions? Has anyone got any more questions from the committee? I'll refer back to your earlier question. Yes, we can. The meeting's now finished, 8:10. Thank you.